a little overwhelmed, feeling like maybe you've lost your path, lost your way in relation to your nonprofit or your business, and you just need a little bit of, I don't know, like maybe just a way to find your way back to where you were. And I want to just tell you guys that this happens all the time. This is not uncommon. It will not be the first time that this happens to you. So I just wanted to give you a few steps on how you can kind of work your way back to feeling like you're in control, feeling like you can devote the time and effort and energy and find that excitement again that you had when you first started. And sometimes this happens even before you really get off the ground, and that's okay too. So I was talking to someone earlier today, and they have a vision and they have their mission and they've been executing it for quite some time. And they were just saying how they were feeling as if they need to basically close down a few of the chapters. They had chapters in different areas, and they were thinking about closing down a few of the chapters because they were feeling overworked and like they've lost control. And that tends to happen. Sometimes people grow really, really fast, or they grow super slow. And happy Monday to whoever this is. I cannot see your name. I'm sorry. Using this new thing kind of makes it difficult. But just tell me who you are. But happy Monday to you too. So anyway, she was talking to me, and she was just saying that, hey, I feel like I can't really get myself, I feel like she can't catch up. That's what she kept saying. I can't catch up. I feel overworked. I feel overwhelmed. And she felt like her board was a little disengaged, and she didn't really know how to get them engaged. She also just moved from somewhere and didn't know if she should keep the board where she was. And so today I just wanted to kind of, if you're in one of those places or you ever become in one of those places, here's what I want you to do. The first thing I want you to do is just take pause. I just press pause on everything, because especially right now during COVID, you can do that and no one is going to fault you. Businesses are in flux right now. They don't know which way is up right now. Everybody's pivoting. Everybody's trying to find a new way to do things. And I've been here before. I totally understand what this is all about. So, it's a tough place to be, and it doesn't feel good when you're in it, but it is so natural and part of the rhythm of running any business, especially a nonprofit. And trying to keep your board engaged it can be rough if you don't have that just as part of your process in what you do, or you don't have a system that generally just keeps people engaged. And even as of right now, a lot of people who are engaged, a lot of people who are on boards, have their own businesses and have their own issues that are going on with COVID and the pandemic and other things and just life in general. So that was my first thing. I want you to press pause. And then I want you to think about what is something that you absolutely will not let go. This is the non-negotiable of your business. This is basically the core of your business. And hi, Crystal. Thanks so much for letting me know who's there. And if I'm talking and you have questions, just please leave them over to the side and I will answer them. But yes, the big thing about burnout and about, keeping the core of your mission and keeping the core of your vision is that the burnout is natural, because you're trying to do and be everything. You're trying to engage your board. You're trying to run the business. You're trying to make money. You're trying to engage with donors. You're trying to write grants or get sponsorships. You're trying to get the word out. There's so many things and so many different hats that you wear as a nonprofit, which this is completely normal. And I feel sometimes that it's even harder than just running a pure for-profit business, because as a for-profit business, you know what you're trying to talk to people about, you know what you want them to do. And, there are a lot of different things that you need to do as a nonprofit in order to make someone become a customer, make someone become a donor, not just a customer of yours. And so, when you press pause, I just want you to think about what's the core non-negotiable piece of your business that you would not change. Because the next steps I'm going to tell you are are going to bring in some ways that you can change or pivot your organization. And the most important thing is that you realize that you don't want to lose a certain aspect of your business. So she was asking me if I had ever reworked or, modified my vision and mission. You don't really ever rework your vision, but absolutely how you execute your mission can be reworked. And I say execute because you're not really going to change your mission once you have created a nonprofit. You've gone through the whole process and you have your 501c3 and the IRS knows that this is the mission that you're going to be working on. You never really change your mission. Now, modifying how you execute it might be something that you end up doing, which is completely normal. And what I mean by that is maybe you have a different delivery system on how you deliver it. Maybe you have a different way that you do your board meetings. I know that some of you have boards that you meet with every month. And I do recommend, if you're in that course, I often recommend that you meet every 3 months. I think that gives you time to actually come up with things with your board, go and execute them, see if they work, see if they are manageable, if it's something that you can keep going, keep continuing, And then you can come back to the board and you can say, hey, this is what I've done and this is what it looks like. And we had time to implement this process. It's working or it's not working. And when you do it per month, I think it's just a lot of, I guess unless you have a working board, which I don't usually recommend, but if you're just meeting with your board often and you don't necessarily have that working board type of feel to your organization, once a month is asking a lot of people. And you have to remember that this is your mission. This is your vision. And sometimes, just like in any business, you're going to have to press pause. And so again, that's my number one thing. Press pause, think about your core mission, your core vision. Hi, Debbie. And then go on with that. We want to make sure that you understand that people know that you are a startup organization. And I had to be told this too. You are a startup organization and people understand that there are ebbs and flows in the startup process. So even if you've been in business, like I would say a startup is anywhere up to about 5 years of being in business, because generally by then you know if you're going to make it or not. Generally by then you have some sort of sustainability plan. You know if you're going to be able to make money and sustain what you're doing. And generally you have some sort of processes in place and things like that. And so I don't want you guys to be hard on yourselves. I want you guys to understand that this is a very normal piece of the process. These are just a few tips that I have for you to give yourself some permission to do this, okay? So again, that first thing is press pause and keep your core mission. The second thing I want to say is to talk to your board, okay? Well, actually, I'm going to make that the next thing. Then the first thing I want you to do is make a strategic plan for yourself. So I do think it's very important to make sure that you have some sort of strategic plan. Now, in my Unleash Your Profit course, the second course after you've done the Unleash Your Purpose course, I do make everyone start with a strategic vision, because I believe that that is the most important piece of building your business. If you don't have a strategic vision, and there's lots of pieces to this strategic vision, if you don't have that, it makes it very tough to engage your board and help them see where you're trying to go, how you plan to get there, how you plan to make money for it, all the things that go into just the infrastructure of a business, okay? And so I really start with the strategic vision, and I want you to sit down and try to come up with that. Now, something that would be kind of similar to a strategic vision would be the Design Your Life and Business worksheet that I give you guys, and that's more like for goals. But goals are great, but it's not solid enough to help someone else really understand your reasoning as to why that is the goal or why you want to go here, why we're doing it this way, and really help them as your board get on board with you. So I really want to make sure that I stress that there's a big difference between that and the one that I teach in the course. But you need to create your strategic vision. Understand, what your big vision is. Understand your mission. Understand your values. What are the priorities? Like things that really make up your underpinnings of how you're going to continue to accomplish this mission and how you're going to sustain your business. That's really important. So I would much prefer, and I would actually encourage you to take a pause on your business for now, even if it's just like 2 weeks. I would take a pause and I would just look at all of these things first to figure out like how would I want things to go? Because you won't really know any of this information until you've actually been in it for a while. You have to see like where the problems are. Where are you having weak spots? What's actually more important than what maybe you thought was important, before, when you were just kind of dreaming and coming up with it on your own. And that's the beauty to me of what you guys are all doing and what we all do in this group, which is unleashing your something amazing. It's your something amazing. Like no one else has ever done this before. And that's why I feel like I'm coming on here, and why when I was speaking to this other client, no one else has done this. So you're walking through and you are creating the path. And I feel like sometimes we need permission to stop and think and revamp and reevaluate and then come back and share that with your board. Now, the next thing is, after you've created that strategic mission and vision and all the other things that go along with it, and you kind of have an idea of where you want to go, then I suggest talking to your board. Now, sometimes I'll talk to a lot of founders and they'll say, oh yeah, I want to do this and I want to change this and I want to get paid and I want to do all these things. And we forget that we have a board of directors that we really have to keep involved in these decisions. And a lot of you are starting with your founding board members. Now, if sometimes you will have a board of directors and you'll find over time that, hey, my board of directors really is not what I was hoping they were. I can't really re-engage them. We really aren't on the same process. We really aren't on the same page, all these things. Okay, that is okay. That's normal. And you may need to reevaluate your board, and that's okay. But if you went through the course, you know that I tell you to have terms for your board members so that you can always come up and say, okay, your year is up, or your 2 years, or your 3 years, or however you set it up. And that just allows you the opportunity to ask your board member, do you want to still be on the board? And it also allows you to evaluate their performance on the board. And I'm telling you that sometimes it's scary to get up to that point and have to ask that question, because you aren't sure, like, do they want to still be on the board? What if they say no? What if I'm left with no one? That generally doesn't happen. And almost 100%, if you're keeping the pulse on your organization and on your board, you'll know if they're going to want to stay engaged or not. You'll know because you'll see the signs over time, right? If they're not participating in the discussions, or they don't have any input, or maybe you chose the wrong person, now all that's normal. Boards change all the time. They have turnover all the time. The idea is you want that turnover to happen in a more processed way. And the reason I'm focusing so much on your board members is because when you're feeling burnt out like this, you need to be able to go to your board and authentically and openly say, I am exhausted, I am overworked, I have too much going on, and I need to take a break. Now, when you take this break, that I truly highly recommend, even if it's a scheduled break for everybody, like our board has kind of a scheduled break during the summer. We don't meet during the summer. We don't do much with the organization during the summer because kids are out of school, and their kids are out of school and everyone's busy. And then during the holidays, we generally will not have a meeting. We have one early November, and then we don't have another one until February, actually this week. And so you want to make sure that you're scheduling in those breaks, not only for yourself, but for your board members. Because even though when you start, you have like all this energy and it's all focused in on this organization, over time, you want that organization to be running on autopilot. Like you want it to just be kind of doing its own thing, right? So when you go back to make that strategic plan and then you go to speak to your board members and they say, yes, absolutely, we totally understand you're doing a lot. And that's generally what their answers will be. We understand you're doing a lot. Let's take a break. We're going to take off 2 weeks, let's just say. And in those 2 weeks, I would use kind of what I did during those 20 days. And I would have the plan set out as to what you're going to look at, what you're going to try to figure out, what you're going to fix, all the things that you feel you need to catch up on. And in this case, when I was talking to this client, she was trying to figure out if she should close down one of her chapters. And she kept asking me if she should close down one of her chapters. And I said, I can't answer that question for her. But the idea is that you can't close down one of those chapters unless you speak to your board about it. Even though you're the founder and even though you're the owner of the business, when you have a board of directors, that really is who you answer to. And that really is who has to be part of that decision-making process. If you don't engage your board and you don't incorporate your board into some of these decisions, that is probably one of the fastest ways to create a disengaged board. So you don't ever want to get into the mode of just making sweeping decisions without speaking to your board about any of the things. There are a lot of big decisions that I never made without my board members because that just wouldn't be right. Especially if they're your founding board, well, really any board member, but especially if they're your founding board members. A lot of people will take this to heart as if it's their organization as well, and that's what you want. You can't ask for a better board if you have that. So the last thing in this is once you and your board have decided that the hardest part of all of this will be to move forward and make the decision. And the reason I say that that's the hardest part is because making that decision and not knowing if it's the right decision, like say she does close this other area and maybe that area comes up with a new nonprofit and it ends up working and you're going to think to yourself like, gosh, that could have been me. You have to let the chips fall where they may. Okay. So you have to just move forward with that decision and decide like, okay, I couldn't handle it at that time. We're going to maybe do that somewhere else. The other thing I want to add in there is when you have different segments of your population, different segments of your nonprofit, and say you have, 4 different, let's just say you have 4 different programs, or you have 4 different locations, or you have just different parts and pieces of your organization. The one thing I want you guys to keep in mind is to try to keep that as centralized as possible. So it's fun to be able to expand, but when you think about expansion, you're like, I can have somebody in this city, and I can have somebody in that city, and I can have somebody in this city. You start to lose a little bit of control and process that, systemization that will go along with your organization. But keeping it more centralized, like having specifically in this case, we were talking about volunteers. So she had board members in these other areas running these other things. Your board members are not employees, and they are not people who are there to just, I don't want to say do your bidding, but they're not there for you to just tell what you need them to do. They're there so that you can come to them and come up with some, they're doing the oversight of your organization. So fiduciary responsibilities to advise you, to help you make hard decisions about the organization. They're at a much higher level than, say, a volunteer. So one of the things I would recommend is that if you're going to have these 4 different programs or 4 different areas or be in 4 different locations or whatever it is, try to have a centralized volunteer coordinator. So when I talk about sustainability and I talk about paying someone or paying yourself, whatever, you have to really think about who you actually need. Like I needed a program coordinator that was going to coordinate the kids, but you might need a volunteer coordinator, or you might need a QuickBooks person, or you might need somebody who's like a secretary for you or an assistant. But that first person that you're going to bring on and pay, you need to make sure that you really understand what their purpose is in the organization and how you plan to use them and why. So let's just change that really quick, and then I'll get off here in a second. But if you have a if you have a volunteer coordinator, that volunteer coordinator is the one that's going to be working with all of those different segments in those different locations. But if that ends up being you as the founder, that makes it really, really, really difficult. Okay. And I think that is the crux of the matter and why we tend to get burnt out. Number one, because we are not delegating, number one, to someone else. And you feel like you need to have all the control. And you have really decentralized the workflow. And so you want to really think about, how can I centralize my workflow and how can I delegate that some of the tasks that you're doing. And lastly, you want to think about, if I hire someone, who am I looking to hire? Even if hiring in your mind, you know, is like related to money, sometimes this is just a volunteer, someone who really is passionate about your organization, who wants to help you, and they just want to help you out of the goodness of their heart. You know, they just want to volunteer their time. You need to know what you actually need. And a lot of times when you first start up an organization, people are like, I'll help you, I'll do this, I want to help you, I want to do this. And you don't really know at that time where you need that help. And it is okay to say, I'm going to get back to you. I'm definitely going to remember you. And as soon as I know exactly where I can use you, I'm going to call you and I will ask you if you can help me. And I would find out what their strengths are. I would find out where they feel that they can give the most help to you. And if you end up having a job that will utilize that, then I would absolutely do it. And I think that's pretty much it for the most part. I mean, when it comes to burnout, it really is all about taking a moment to step away from what you're doing. Think about what you want to do and where you want to go, and reevaluate your plan of where you're trying to get to. And then come back to your board with like, hey, I've got this vision, I've got this idea. I kind of want to change things around. Your board is not going to look poorly on you because you're thinking about switching up something. This is all part of the process, especially when you are a startup. This is very, very normal. And if you take this as a sign of permission or whatever to take a break, do that. The only thing I would caution at the very end of this is, if you decide to take a break, I would make sure that you also let your donors know, like if you're going to take a break on your newsletter, or you're going to take a break on your anything that you're planning to take a break. Mostly it's your newsletter that donors will be on. Just let them know, hey guys, we have a lot going on and we're going to take a short break to really get things back up to speed. And then we will be back on whatever date. And people are very forgiving, very accepting of the fact that you might need to take a break. You have to understand, most people cannot even fathom the idea that you have started a nonprofit, that you have started something from scratch. That's very, very difficult for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. So most people are looking at you like, wow, I can't believe you started this. That's so cool. And all you need to do is be able to communicate with them. So COVID forced us to take a break, and we are just now trying to relaunch. And that's really where people are right now. Like, that's totally normal. Don't worry about that at all. I mean, you have to understand that there are millions and millions of other people who are in the same position as you, right? They had something planned to start. These are both for-profit and nonprofit businesses, and now they have to go back to the drawing board. Or people who are already in business now have to go back and pivot or change things, or change the process, change the system. That's okay. How do you recommend that we convey to our audience that we are still credible? Just start. Just start. Because your audience, if you think of social media, like a place to drop breadcrumbs, I don't know how else to explain this. This is how I think of social media. It's a place to drop breadcrumbs. We were off our social media for a long time for Launchpad, and it's probably one of my last priorities when it comes to operational, duties that I have to do. And the reason for that is because right now I don't really have anything that I need to share or that I can share because we haven't had a lot of activity for the organization. And so you have to think about, you don't want to just be posting just to post unless you have extra time and you can do all that. But most of us don't have the extra time. And if it's not the number one priority, don't do it. Don't worry about it. You just work on the mission. The way that you're going to show people that you're credible is results. That's how you're going to do that. You have to just show results. Focus on getting the result. However that manifests for your organization, you want to show people that I've got the results. I'm doing the work. We're getting good results from it. And that's basically where you want to focus your energy. And I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, you guys, I hate to see people get burnt out and then feel bad about being burnt out, because it's not a necessary feeling, and it's something very natural and normal that happens. And it's easy to correct. It's just going through that process. And again, that process is just taking a moment to press pause, okay? Letting your donors know that you're pressing pause, because that is kind of important. And then writing out your strategic vision and mission and the whole strategic plan. I'm not talking about like, you can go back to a strategic plan that you've had before and write in the changes. I don't care. But yes, you need to go and have a strategic plan rewritten. Like, go back to that, okay? The basics. We're going to start all over again. And then you want to make sure that you can make a decision with your board, whatever that decision is with your board. Talk to them, let them know about the vision and the plan that you're thinking, and then make a decision and let the chips fall where they may. Okay. And then lastly, move forward. Whatever happens from that point on, I mean, this is a journey. Like, this is not something that you're going to do and it's just going to come out absolutely perfect immediately, and then you're going to be done. Like, this is a journey, and you might pivot again in 2 or 3 years, depending on what's going on with the economy, depending on what's going on with the environment, depending on what goes on with laws. There might be a law that comes in that makes everything happen, that they no longer need your organization, right? There's lots of things that can happen over time. So just my advice to you is, don't think that you have to have it all figured out and done right away. And when you need to take that break, take the break. Press pause. Let your donors know. Talk to your board members. Like, your board members are there to help you make those decisions. A lot of times we'll be going to family and friends, but that's a good place to kind of like throw some things out there. But they're not in the organization like your board members. Like, your board members have been there. It's like birthing a baby and, raising a child with your spouse. Like, they know your children better than someone else outside who may have raised kids before or raised different kids. But you and your spouse know your children better than anybody else. And so that's how you have to think of your board members and your organization. It's all of you know that organization from top to bottom better than anyone else. So just remember that, incorporate your board, and you will be fine. And when you make the decision, don't look back. Just keep moving forward. So that's all I have for you guys this week. Thank you all so much for coming, and I hope that really helped you guys. I don't want you guys to suffer from burnout, because it's just not necessary. Now I want you to get out there and unleash something amazing and have a remarkable Monday and a great week. Okay, I will see you guys next week. Talk to you soon. Bye.